Hello, and welcome to a special bonus episode of Stuck Stories. My name is Matthew, and I'm the creator of Stuck Stories and the voice of Brady. Do you remember when Brady told Clarabelle the story of Peter the Hippo? Well, I wanted to share the whole story with you today, and at the end of the episode, we'll hear another Peter story sent in by a listener. So sit back and enjoy this bonus episode of Stuck Stories. Spotted, Blotted, Polka-Dotted, the story of Peter the Hippo, by Matthew Hager. There's a desert in Africa called Serengeti, where you hardly can find there a bowl of spaghetti. It's hot, and it's dry, and there's vast land to roam, and millions of animals call this place home. There are lions who rule there and eat, getting fat, and zebras who wish they would stop doing that. There's cheetahs, hyenas, such diversity, and the prettiest cranes that you ever did see. But the most special creature that's ever been spotted is Peter, a hippo that's pink polka-dotted. Isn't that silly? What do you think? A hippo with polka dots, more than that, pink? In all that I've seen, and I tell you, that's lots, I've never seen hippos with pink polka dots. And yet there he lives, and yet there he stays, in a small straw-thatched hut where he spends all his days. He never comes out to play in the sun, though his hut may heat up to 101. But he'll peek through the blinds as he stays on the couch. He'll watch all the animals and say with a slouch,
"Gee, that looks fun, all they're playing around. I wish that were me."
Then he'll feel his heart pound. He'll stride to the door and intend to walk out, then turn right around to his bedroom and pout.
"There's no way a hippo who looks like I do could ever make friends. No, not one or two. I wish I were plainer and braver, a rover, and not a sad hippo with pink dots all over."
But one day the sun got so hot in the sky that Peter was desperate.
"I'm just about to fry. I wish it would rain, yes, even a drizzle. But such as it is, when I sit down, I sizzle." Outside, they're all cool by the watering hole. "That seems paradise," he'd praise and extol. "To be with all them would be cake and its icing. The fun all looks grand and the water enticing. Just one dip can't hurt. Oh, that'd be such bliss. But I can't go outside. Oh, not looking like this."
Then Peter said, cocked his head to the side, and smirked. Then he grinned. Then that grin got real wide. If you looked above his head, I tell you, you'd see a light bulb turn on, 'cause he got an idea. He sped to his closet as quick as he could, rummaging through,
saying, "This'll be good."
He kept digging round, he looked in each drawer.
"Why can't I find here what I'm looking for?"
He dragged out his dresser, his plays by snake spear, then scratching his head said,
"It's gotta be here."
He pulled out his trombone, his drum set, kazoo. When you're stuck in the house, then there's lots that you do. He tossed out a fountain pen that had its tip bent, and lots of unused exercising equipment. Seeing his junk,
"It's amazing,"
he posited,
"how you can forget all the stuff that you closeted. Perhaps once I cool down, I'll be a good planner."
But hippos aren't known for their neat, tidy manner. And just as he pulled out his jacket adorner, he screamed,
"There it is! In the back right-hand corner! This here will help me to be what I ain't,"
he said as he held up a pail of gray paint. He set the pail down just to open its lid, and you won't believe what this hippo then did. He picked it back up.
"Here goes,"
Peter said, and he poured the gray paint out on top of his head. He slathered himself from his snout to his tail. He dripped every drop he could get from that pail. He brushed it around. He smoothed and he smeared, and Peter's pink polka dots all disappeared. His body was gray now. Oh yes, to be sure, Peter looked nothing like he had before.
"I love how I look. I've never looked dearer,"
he said as he twirled and he gazed in the mirror.
"This color's ideal, not sloppy, not formal. For the first time in ever, I finally look normal. A perfect disguise is what this gray paint coat is. The others," he thought, "they won't even notice."
Taking a breath, Peter walked out his door, leaving only a few gray footprints on his floor. He walked down his stoop and into the sand of the desert as he gave a wave of his hand.
"Hello to all you of the great Serengeti. I'm new here in town, so I'm sure we've not met. As you see, I'm as normal can get.
His lies were as bad as his paint job was wet. It's hard for a hippo to have nonchalance, but he tried as he waited to hear their response. A few turned their heads, but mostly stayed chatty. Perhaps he had fooled them, just maybe. Well, had he? Then silence went out across the wide Serengeti, and Peter, he stood there, uncertain, and yet he was starting to feel just a little bit prouder, till silence was broken by something far louder. The animals laughed out with such big guffaws. They rolled on their backs, they clapped with their paws. Never had ever a creature quite got a fuss as gray paint on this dotted pink hippopotamus. The jackal, composing himself, first spoke up.
What are you thinking? That I'm still a pup? There's a drip on your leg, and the paint's missed a spot. On the back of your ear, there's a pink polka dot. The gray is all flaking, that's why we're here chaffing. We know what you are.
And he joined back in, laughing. It's a horrible thing, if it ever comes true, when your worst fears all happen, and happen to you. Then Peter, recovering fast from his shock, ran back to his hut and turned tight the lock. He ran to his bedroom and sat in his chair with a dribble of gray that was trailing him there. He sat in the dark, amidst all his fears, and the paint on his face became streaked by his tears.
What was I thinking? That I'm not a freak?
Then Peter was startled when he heard something squeak. He jumped on his chair, which made it collapse.
I'm the clumsiest hippo.
Then a voice said, "Perhaps." He looked all around him, but no one was there. The small voice continued,
Look under your chair.
and out from the mess Peter made on his floor, a small mouse emerged whom he'd not met before.
Name's Baxter Asparagus Greavy the Third. I live neath your floorboards. Can we have a word? This boo-hoo-hoo-hooing is making it tough for my children to sleep, and if that's not enough, your tears and your paint, they are flooding my house,
Said Baxter Asparagus Greavy the mouse.
I'm sorry for all of that stuff,
Peter said, as he sniffled and sniffed with his hands on his head.
but nobody likes me. My heart's gotten sore.
And he plopped down right by his trombone on the floor.
I tried to fit in and be one of the herd, but my pink polka dots are too loud and absurd. They all stared and gawked at me. What's more, right after, they fell over belly aching with their laughter. I'm sorry to bother you, but I must cry. There's never been such a sad hippo as I.
There,
Baxter said, sitting on Peter's knee.
no reason to feel down or weird. Look at me. I've a name that's as silly as any you've heard.
Said Baxter Asparagus Greavy the Third.
In school, I despised it. I'd need for a rest any time I would write it out taking a test. Folks laughed at me, too. They'll call you bizarre when you've got a name twice as long as you are. But that doesn't matter. My name's part of me, and I'm just as me as there's any can be. I'm one of the few with a lineage reversed to Baxter Asparagus Greavy the First. I'm proud of my name, despite its conflicts. Go ask my kids, Baxters, the 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Then Peter, he sniffled, his teeth still a chatter.
But pink polka dots are a quite different matter. You can't see names coming from miles away.
Then Baxter stood up.
Now hear what I say. You know my name now. Do you think I'm odd? What makes us stand out is a thing to applaud. We all have that something that makes us unique. Lions have manes and cranes a long beak. Zebras have stripes, elephants trunks, and nothing compares to the funks of the skunks.
Peter said,
But all them share their oddness together. There's no other hippo a bird of my feather.
Look here,
Baxter said as he climbed up a shelf.
for others to like you, you must like yourself. We all deserve truly to like ourselves lots, no matter our names or our pink polka dots. Despite all the flooding my housing's gone through, I know that I like you, and know you can too. It may not be instant. Give it time. It'll take it. And until it's true, then you'll just have to fake it.
Then, giving a smile that meant so much more, Baxter turned and went back through his hole in the floor. And as Peter sat there, alone once again, he thought of the day and the havoc there'd been. He picked himself up and brushed off his rump, then stood himself taller with much less a slump. As Baxter's last words echoed still in his ears, he wanted to try again, facing his fears. He walked past the mirror and straight to the door, and shakily went for the handle once more. He thought about Baxter, the wise words he'd lent him, and took a deep breath to gather momentum. He flung wide the door, stepping into the sun to continue the thing he had earlier begun. The animals silenced. Peter went numb, and he braced for exactly what he knew would come. Once again, he was horrified. This wasn't nice.
The worst thing,
He thought,
is to face your fears twice.
but this time he didn't go running inside. He thought of the mouse, and here's what he tried. He puffed up his chest. He lifted his chin. He faked he felt comfortable in his own skin. And with a big stride so as not to delay, he started once more to the water that day. He walked the path carefully, taking things slow, and strutted his stuff across the dry grass below. He did scratch his belly, a small issue which he admits was the gray paint that made him feel itchy. And as streams of tears were replaced by his sweat, Peter thought,
I may get to that water hole yet.
The animals laughed on as though they had planned it, but Peter kept walking.
I know I'll withstand it.
The crane cried,
He's back here! That pink polka dot!
Keep going, keep going.
the brave hippo thought.
I don't think that ever has my life felt fraughter.
But still on he went down his path to the water, and as his big toe touched the lip of the pool, he sighed with relief.
Oh, wow. That feels cool.
He kept wading deeper, as deep as he pleased, then slipped on a rock and fell down to his knees. Dripping, he stood as the birds turned to scoff, just in time to see that his gray paint had washed off. With nothing around to cover up after, he stood in his glory, accompanied by laughter. And then something happened. Amidst all their crowing, as Peter just stood there, his polka dots showing, he didn't back down, or tremble, or cower. He stood through it all, stepping into his power. They gawked at the formerly gray-painted painter, but though it took minutes, their laughter grew fainter. And when they had stopped every bark, tweet, and bray, proud Peter announced,
I have something to say. Too long I have felt shameful, gloomy, and weak by what you call silly, which makes me unique. I know that I'm not ugly, sad, and distraughted. I am who I am, and that's pink polka-dotted.
And out of the silence left there by his solo, a cheetah called out,
Can you play water polo? Our center has broken his paw, sad but true. It sure would be nice to have someone like you.
Peter could hardly believe what he heard. He smiled at first, but then remembered.
I don't know the rules, but your offer is kind.
The cheetah said,
Shout if you do change your mind.
though Peter said,
No.
it was great to see a kind face. So he rethought and called,
Wait for me!
He played water polo all day in the sun, and the spots beat the stripes by a score 3-1. Perhaps Peter faked all his feelings to start, but it planted a seed, which then grew in his heart. The seed grew a stem, and the stem grew deep roots, then a bud, then a flower, and many offshoots. Peter practiced empowerment each day he played, and he found, over time, that his confidence stayed. And today, if you fly overhead with good weather, you'll see all the animals playing together. Amidst the thick manes, the feathers, and spots, you'll find there the happiest pink polka dots.
I'm open! Yay!
And maybe some animals never came round to the new braver Peter, and self-love he found. No matter of them, and the tempests they toss. Some folks won't like pink dots, and that is their loss. We each have our specialness that we're allotted. Whether seen or unseen, we're all polka-dotted. I hope you embrace yours, and fully, because then you'll love yourself like the way Peter does. The end. Spotted, Blotted, Polka-Dotted was my version of the story of Peter the Hippo. But that's not the only version there is. We asked our listeners to send in their own Peter stories, and I wanted to share one with you today. This is by Jackson, age 7. Peter the Hippo stayed inside and didn't go outside because the other animals were rude. One day, the hyenas said they wanted to see Peter's stupid polka dots. He went outside by himself and got stuck in an avalanche, and the hyena came to dig him out. Then the hyena said Peter the hippopotamus's spots were nice, and they had a great big hug. The end. Isn't that great? I love that Peter went through an avalanche, so he can relate to Clarabelle and Brady, and I especially love that the hyena had a change of heart and became friends with Peter. Thank you, Jackson, for sending in such a wonderful story. And thanks to all you for listening to this bonus episode. My name is Matthew, and here's hoping that you aren't stuck. But if you are, we'll always be there for you in episodes of Stuck Stories.